Apple is about to charge you $200 more for a phone that looks identical to last year's. And the wild part, it might actually be worth it. Here's everything you need to know about the iPhone 18 Pro, the specs, the price, and the one camera upgrade that changes something fundamental about how your phone takes photos. And there's a specific detail buried in the supply chain reports that every leak video is glossing over. We'll get there, right? So we are 3 months out from the iPhone 18 Pro launch. The Pro and Pro Max are expected on sale September 18, 2026, following an Apple keynote on September 9th. What I've done is gone through every credible leak, every supply chain report, every analyst call, and pulled out what's actually confirmed, what's highly likely, and what's still noise. And there is one structural change Apple is making to this launch cycle that affects every single person watching this, whether you're planning to buy or not. Apple is splitting its iPhone 18 lineup, with the more expensive Pro and Fold models launching in fall 2026 and the more affordable iPhone 18 and iPhone 18e coming in spring 2027. That shift has consequences, and by the end of this, I'll tell you exactly who wins and who loses from that decision, and then it might not be who you think. Let's start with the number nobody wants to talk about first. Apple's iPhone 18 Pro models could be up to $200 more expensive, according to a prediction from analytics firm IDC. $200 on a phone that starts at over $1,000. The camera module for the iPhone 18 Pro is expected to cost Apple roughly 50% more than the current hardware. That is not a small number, and Apple has a decision to make: absorb it or hand it to you at checkout. Apple raised the price of its Macs and iPads in June 2026, and it will likely increase the price of new iPhone models as they launch. So the precedent is already set. Here's the thing. There are two reasons this price increase is happening, and only one of them is a real reason. The fake reason is tariffs and supply chain. That's the press release answer. The real reason is structural. Every new iPhone introduced in September 2026 will likely start at $999 or more. Think about what that means. Customers who want to upgrade during the standard fall timeline will need to opt for one of the more expensive iPhone models, while those who want a better deal will have to wait. Apple has quietly removed the budget option from September. If you want a new iPhone this fall, any new iPhone, you are buying a Pro. That is not a coincidence. That is a pricing strategy. I broke down exactly how Apple's split launch strategy compares to what Samsung tried with the Galaxy S series stagger. And if you haven't seen that one, it's linked below, and it puts this whole decision in context. Okay, now we get to the reason I said some of those people walking away from the iPhone 18 Pro are making a mistake. On every iPhone until now, that opening never changes. The lens is always at its widest. Software then simulates the effects a different aperture would have created, applying computational blur to fake a shallow depth of field in portrait mode. It works, but it's not real. Photographers who use dedicated cameras can always tell. Variable aperture lets the camera physically adjust that opening in real time. From the iPhone 14 Pro through the iPhone 17 Pro, the main camera uses a fixed aperture of f1.78, meaning the lens remains fully open at all times when capturing images. Every single generation, same aperture. Apple has started ramping up its supply chain for a new variable aperture camera system expected to debut in the iPhone 18 Pro and Pro Max this September. Apple has never implemented a variable aperture on an iPhone. Samsung tried this back in 2018 on the Galaxy S9. The first smartphone with a variable aperture was the Galaxy S9 and S9 Plus Back in 2018, the Duo featured a diaphragm on the main camera with two settings. The system didn't work very well, and the resulting shots suffered from different artifacts and defects. Samsung tried it, got embarrassed, and quietly retired it. Huawei picked it up in 2022 and got closer. Now Apple is walking in 5 years later with the benefit of watching everyone else fail first. For video, the value is clearest. Closing the aperture allows longer exposure times per frame and introduces natural motion blur for cinematic footage, something the current fixed lens cannot do optically. That last part, read that again. Natural motion blur for cinematic footage, optically. Not computed, not estimated, not a filter. Optical, for people who shoot video on iPhone Pro, that is a genuinely different product. Okay, and everything I just told you about the camera, that is actually the second best story in this video. What's coming next is the detail that nobody's connecting, the one that changes who should and shouldn't buy this phone entirely. Sources say this iPhone will debut Apple's next generation A20 Pro processor, marking the brand's first transition away from 3-nanometer architecture to TSMC's cutting-edge 2-nanometer manufacturing process. Now, most videos are going to tell you this means it's faster. And it does. Early performance estimates indicate around a 15% boost in processing speed and a 30% gain in power efficiency compared to the A19 generation. But here's the part nobody's talking about. The A20 Pro will be Apple's first chip built on TSMC's 2-nanometer process node. Every iPhone chip from the A14 to the A19 Pro uses FinFET transistors. The A20 Pro switches to a completely different transistor architecture, gate-all-around nanosheets. This is not a shrink, this is a rebuild. And the reason that matters for you, the person deciding whether to spend $1,200 on this phone, is battery life. The Pro Max model may come with a 5,000 plus milliamp hours battery, while the smaller iPhone 18 Pro is expected to have a 4,250 plus milliamp hours battery cell. Combined with the efficiency gains from the 2-nanometer chip, the displays will reportedly use LTPO plus display technology, which should contribute to longer battery life. Now, here's the thing nobody is saying out loud. There is a caveat worth naming. The iPhone 17 Pro brought a durability complaint that Apple has not resolved for 2026. The anodized aluminum chassis, introduced last year to replace titanium, developed surface chipping within months for a subset of users. Apple is keeping the anodized aluminum chassis, the chassis that chips, the same one. I find it interesting that we're being asked to pay $200 more for a phone with a known cosmetic durability issue that Apple has simply decided not to fix. That's the part nobody's connecting. The camera module costs 50% more to build. That cost is going straight to you. And the chassis problem that costs Apple nothing to address stays right. Let's go through the rest of it quickly. Reports point to a smaller dynamic island made possible by Face ID components moving further under the display. Phone Arena claims this cutout could shrink by almost 50%, making the screen feel more immersive without changing how the feature works. That is a genuinely noticeable change. Not you'll squint to see it different, visually immediately different when you pick it up. The Pro models are widely expected to feature an A20 Pro chip, an Apple C2 modem, and a smaller dynamic island. The C2 modem is Apple's in-house chip. It will support a privacy-focused, limit-precise location setting that cuts down on the location data available to mobile networks. Networks will not be able to determine your exact location. Instead of seeing location down to an address, carriers might instead see the neighborhood where a device is located. That's an underreported upgrade. Colors, the red shade may be more of a dark cherry color with a tinge of purple rather than a darker red shade. Apple could sell the dark cherry color alongside light blue, dark gray, and silver. And Siri, iOS 27 introduces the liquid glass design language. For iPhone 18 buyers, this means the AI features you're upgrading for are confirmed and shipping with iOS 27 at launch, not hypothetical additions that may or may not land on time. Let me close all the loops. First, as the supply chain detail I mentioned at the top, the camera module for the iPhone 18 Pro is expected to cost Apple roughly 50% more than the current hardware, a cost increase the company will need to decide whether to absorb or pass on in the retail price. Here's what that means practically. If the variable aperture camera arrives and it works, and based on the production reports, the actuators are already being built, then the price increase has a real justification behind it. If it doesn't ship or ships half finished as a settings menu nobody opens, $200 for a smaller dot on your screen and a new chip, that's the calculus. My take for iPhone users specifically, this is the first time the camera will have real physical control over depth of field rather than a software approximation of it. If you shoot photos and video, this is a real upgrade. If you're on an iPhone 16 Pro or older, upgrade. If you're on an iPhone 17 Pro and you shoot mostly social content, wait. The chassis chips, the design is the same, and you already have a great camera. I did a full breakdown of why the iPhone 17 Pro camera is still genuinely underrated in 2026. If you haven't seen it, that's linked below, and it'll help you decide whether you actually need to upgrade this year. Variable aperture was on Android in 2018. Samsung tried it and dropped it. Huawei built it better. Apple is arriving in 2026 with the full benefit of watching everyone else struggle first. Do you think Apple is going to nail it where Samsung couldn't? Or is this another feature that sounds great in a keynote and disappears into a submenu by February? Drop it below.